This is the Morning Tailgate.
I'll just tell the Raider Nation that we have to earn your trust. We got to earn those seats in the stands by putting a great product on the field. Words will not do it. It's our actions.
With Vin Sapienza, Vinny Bonsignor, and Clay Baker on Raider Nation Radio 920.
It's the Morning Tailgate Show on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM on a Friday. Vinny Bonsignor, Clay Baker, Connor doing his thing on the boards today, and we have a really good show for you. Coming up at 8 a.m., Alex Eschelman from KTNV Channel 13 News Las Vegas. And then at 9 a.m., our good friend Ralph Michaels from CalSports Las Vegas, CalSportsLV. And today we're going to talk about, when you think about the Raiders' future and the roster that John Spytek and everybody on board have put together, Clay, as opposed to some recent years past, where you see a lot of older guys, one and done type of players, guys that were signed as stopgap players for 1 year or so, maybe two, but there wasn't really the longevity that you like to see, or the what's the future here? You look at the linebackers last year; all three of the starting linebackers were gone. That was almost inevitable. They were all signed to 1 year deals as guys that were just going to kind of come in and hold down the fort, after some other people left. But as opposed to that situation, I think the Raiders now, when you look at this roster, you see a lot of longevity, and it's not just, in one room or two rooms. It's really across the board. That young secondary, if things pop with them, you can envision that being together, for the next 4 or 5 years or so. There'll be some changes. It's inevitable. But the core group could be together for a while. You look at the linebackers, Nakobe Dean and, Quay Walker. They're both signed to 3-year contracts. They're going to be here for a little while. The young defensive line is going to be here for a little while. Same with the offensive line, et cetera, et cetera. So for the first time, you're seeing, a future where guys are going to be here for a little bit and hopefully be part of the turnaround and part of the glory when they're raising a really important trophy at some point. But nowhere more so for me in terms of real intrigue and production and excitement and doing the type of things that put people in the seats and get on ESPN and all the post game shows, et cetera, than the weapons that they have. And I don't think it's the deepest group necessarily, especially with the wide receiver. I think there's some additions that will be made in the future. But when your starting point for your quarterback, running back, premier weapon are, let's just go tight end, running back, quarterback, is Brock Bowers, Ashton Jeanty, and then eventually Fernando Mendoza. Clay, when you think about the potential of that group, Fernando Mendoza being the first pick overall, reigning Heisman Trophy winner, national champion, when you start thinking about, we know what Brock Bowers is capable of doing, and I think with the right infrastructure around Ashton Jeanty, I think we know what he can do. Man, when you start talking about the potential of that trio, those triplets, if you want to call them that, it's pretty intriguing.
It's what's been missing. You can't underestimate the power and the gift of having young players to grow around, but 3 exciting players where you could feel like, all right, this could be a generational grouping that you could go forward with and not only build something, but maybe even attain something that's high up into the playoffs and go after a Super Bowl. We see how that is a formula for a lot of teams, that they go and draft great skill players, quarterback, running back, pass catcher, that bring them to the top. And the Raiders now have this ability to go and be in that group after the drafting of Fernando Mendoza. It's exciting to think what that could be, because we've seen how other iterations where you try to find, as you said, and it's true, trying to find some sort of stopgap veteran at one of those positions, but you're never really growing. You're just kind of staying at a spot. Right now for the Raiders, they have this potential that they can grow with Mendoza, Jeanty, and Bowers and bring them to a new level.
Yeah, and when you think about those triplets, that trio, obviously steps need to be taken. First and foremost, Fernando Mendoza needs to make the transition, to the NFL. Obviously, Ashton Jeanty, through no fault of his own, needs to build off what was, statistically a disappointing season for him. Again, through no fault of his own. The offensive line was in shambles. The offensive system just didn't work, just never took hold. They fired the offensive coordinator, at some point during the season. So there was a lot of dysfunction, but I think he showed enough when things were going quote unquote right, because I don't know if things were ever going truly right, but when things got blocked up, let's put it that way, and the play design worked, he was able to take it to the house. He had some nice games. He obviously put some numbers up there, that you almost defied, reason, because you're like, it just always seemed like he was getting hit by in the line of scrimmage.
Yes.
Yet you look up and he's got 900 yards, and but brighter things are ahead. But what we're talking about here is just a power trio that is going to be basically the foundation for your offense. And in comparison to some others, CBS Sports did a great article about this, ranking the top the top trios, the top triplets on particular teams. And just to give you an example, number one was the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's Joe Burrow, the quarterback, obviously, running back Chase Brown, wide receiver Jamar Chase. Number two was the Los Angeles Rams, Matthew Stafford, Kyren Williams, and Puka Nacua. To me, I think
that could be number one.
Yeah, that could definitely be number one. Number three is Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the great wide receiver. The Baltimore Ravens are number four, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers. And so you look at, those are some examples. We'll go through some others, and we want your thoughts, 702-365-9200. A, what do you think about the potential of Fernando, Ashton, and Brock Bowers? And B, when do you think it'll be, how long do you think it'll be before we're talking about that trio in the same company as the four that I just mentioned? And quite honestly, Clay, I don't think it's going to be very long at all. I'm not talking about this year necessarily, although I think people are going to start to realize how good Ashton Jeanty is. I know that they already know how good Brock Bowers is, but coming off an injury-riddled season that he had last year, I think he's going to remind people, let's put it that way, how good he really is. And if Fernando gets on the field and good things start happening, then all of a sudden I do believe that this trio of Raiders, this offensive trio, is going to be talked about in ways that maybe a trio hasn't been talked about in a long time here with the Raiders.
These triplets, they're on an offense. They're part of the reason why those teams are very successful and are always in the mix in the playoffs, because the triplets actually create scoring, and that allows these teams to be listed in the top 10 of the scoring at the end of the year as far as points per game and total points overall. This is how you win, and this is how you get ahead. This is how all the great teams start moving into the direction of, all right, we started low, we're able to get these draft picks, and now we ascend, we move on. And for me, the Raiders, unlike some of the triplets that are listed on here ahead of them, they're at least these guys are homegrown. At least these are drafted, and they're young players. We're talking about great players under the age of 25. Those are hard to find. And to think of what this first year of what the triplets could do, I'm very excited about that, because the potential of this going forward could be massive. And when you think about one of your triplets is one of the best players in the league overall in Brock Bowers, the sky's the limit. So when you think about what could be had, what is the potential? How far away are these triplets? It is contingent on when does Fernando Mendoza play. And during this week, I'm starting to match up with you as like, I want to see this right now. And I think overall we're going to start to see somebody that's ready to take hold of the reins and show you what he can do. But at the same time, none of this can get enacted until he hits the lineup.
Yeah, true. The entire trio. We obviously, until Fernando Mendoza gets on the field, it's a little bit of an unknown, and left to the imagination to try to figure that out. And I think in Ashton's case too, Clay, and we've been talking about this. Just the infrastructure around him needs to be better. There's no running back in the league that makes a bad offensive line good. A good offensive line can make a good running back great. That could definitely happen. A great running back can make a bad offensive line a little bit better, but it's hard to do that. It's hard if you're a great. We talked about Todd Gurley. There was a time where Todd Gurley was the best of the best in terms of the running back position. He caught the ball, he ran the ball, he was big, he was strong, he was fast, could take it to the house, could bull you over, all of those things. But in that second year, when everything fell apart around him, he was just a pedestrian-like running back. He was averaging 3.2 yards per carry, and everyone, I remember people in Los Angeles going, "What was all this hype about Todd Gurley?" And I remember writing many, many times, "This isn't a Todd Gurley problem. It's a Rams offensive problem. It's a bad offensive line. There's no weapons." Kenny Britt was one of their better wide receivers. Kenny Britt, remember him? It was just terrible. And,
the speedster on the outside from Tennessee that you always hoped for big plays that never came.
He was just and that brings me to Ashton Jeanty. They're different running backs. He's a different running back than Todd Gurley, but the point remains: a running back can't get it done without a supporting cast, without a good offensive line. We saw that with Josh Jacobs, every so often.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, he led the league in rushing one year when things were going pretty well, but then there were years where, kind of like what happened last year with Ashton, where the poor guy was just getting mauled behind the line of scrimmage time and time again, so he just didn't have the room to be able to operate. And we all knew that Josh Jacobs was a great running back. We saw the statistics, we saw the production, but if you're not blocking it up, then you're kind of hopeless as a running back. So I think Brock Bowers has already shown, even in a bad situation a couple of years ago, his rookie year, that was a bad offense. We all understand that, but he put up historical numbers for a rookie tight end just because he was so good, and they were able to get him the ball, over 100 times, and then he did the rest after that. Now he just needs to stay healthy, and I think that the numbers will go right back to where they were 2 years ago. But in Ashton's case, I think that there has to be some sort of cause and effect. The offensive line has to be better, and the play calling and everything needs to be better. And I happen to think that it is. So if we are going to put some numbers to those two, we'll park Fernando to the side because we don't know when he's going to get on the field, so it's hard to predict that. But assuming that it's 17 games for Ashton and 17 games for Brock Bowers, what kind of numbers do you think that both of those guys are capable of putting together?
I feel like, not unlike how Josh Jacobs in that year where it was incredible, a 1,500-yard rushing attack and maybe an offensive line that was, putting parts together. Josh Jacobs did benefit from having a fullback like Jakob Johnson, and maybe somebody like Ashton Jeanty can benefit from having, a fullback like Hayward. Maybe Connor Hayward is somebody that goes and, makes that difference on an offensive line that's still trying to find its footing, maybe even in the beginning of the year, and maybe it congeals later on. So I can see somebody like Ashton Jeanty reaching a plateau of around 1,200 rushing yards and still able to go and get about 50 catches for 350 yards as well, being that back that plays all year and could do a lot of different things. And I feel like for Jeanty, that's on the table. And for Bowers, I would love to see a return to that first year, because that was an absolute superlative effort, and I felt like even last year, had he not missed time, he would have got close to those numbers again.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question he's that good. I mean, I'm looking back at that Josh Jacobs season. This was in 2022. The coach was Josh McDaniels, and I remember people, saying, they put him in that preseason game. Oh my gosh, Josh McDaniels doesn't like Josh
Hall
Jacobs.
Of Fame
He's
game,
playing
right?
for his job, and I'm like, no, that's what the Patriots did. They liked their running backs to get some time in the preseason just to kind of get roughened up, toughened up, and all that. Well, that year, if Josh McDaniels didn't like Josh Jacobs, he sure had a weird way of expressing that. Josh Jacobs carried the ball 340 times that year, averaging averaged 4.9 yards per carry, 1,653 yards, 12 touchdowns. Also had an NFL high that led the NFL, by the way, with the yards. An NFL long 86-yard touchdown run, averaged 97.2 yards per game on the ground. But man, he also had 53 catches for 400 yards. So that was just a really dynamic season. It all kind of came together for Josh. And here's the thing, Clay. I look at Ashton Jeanty and I'm like, yeah, Ashton Jeanty is capable of doing that. Now I don't know if they're going to hand him the ball 340 times like Josh got in 2022, but I would think that he's going to be in that 280. 290 type range, and if so, and again, the offensive line is doing what it's supposed to do, then I'm with you. I think, what'd you say, 1,200 yards, 1,300 yards? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 1,200 yards and maybe another 350 in receptions with another 50 catches.
There you go, and then you
touchdowns.
Right, exactly, and touchdowns, and I think the beauty of Ashton is those touchdowns don't necessarily have to be, at the goal line. If they're blocking it up correctly, he's a home run hitter. So I'm curious to see how many of those touchdown runs are the 30-plus, variety, 50-plus variety. We saw, Jacobs had an 86-yarder that year. There's going to be a time where he takes 190 yards. I'm just saying that. Yeah. I can't wait for that day. Yeah. We saw a little glimpse of that in that Chicago game where he took it to the house. I forgot how long it was, but wherever it was, he was still running. So if that play had started on the 1-yard line or the 50-yard line, nobody was catching him.
Yeah, but that was a great game, just to show you like that running attack was very strong. I think the Raiders rushed for 250 yards combined in that game. That showed you how a good running attack can really start to manage a better team. I mean, the Bears were very good. They were kind of middling, but they got better throughout the season. But it kept a lot of their weapons off the field because they were able to sustain drives. And even in that magical 2022 season for the Raiders with Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams' first year, they were they averaged 23.2 points per game. That's a far cry from what we've seen lately for the Raiders' offenses in recent years. And Devontae himself had an incredible year with the yardage, and I think he had 150 targets. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and just remembering that year, they were actually for a period of time a top 10 offense. They were that was yeah. the 20. What was it? 23 points per game that they averaged. I'm going to go check it out real quick, but. That was actually a fall off. It teetered off at some point during the season, and that was the kind of infamous year where Derek Carr got benched, Josh McDaniels, and the staff just lost confidence, quite honestly, in Derek Carr. And if you look at it was a weird year for Derek. He started out really well in a new system, but his play fell off, and there's no arguing that it fell off. And I think that the staff, obviously lost confidence in him, and they made this change. It's never quite been the same at quarterback since. Hopefully, Fernando Mendoza is the guy to really solidify that position, but yeah, Carr ended up completing 60.8% percent of his passes that year, which was not normal for him. He was a guy that was coming off 70% completion percentage in 2019, 67.3 in 2020, 68.4 in 2021, and then 60.8 in 2022. That's a pretty big fall off right there. I still to this day can't explain it. I've talked to people that were in the organization at the time, and kind of how Josh McDaniels, just lost faith in him. But there was a time, let's put it this way, there was a time, when you talk about triplets, there was a time that year before it started falling off, before Derek's play started falling off, where those triplets with Derek Carr, Devontae, and Josh Jacobs were I would venture to say they were ranked as high as any triplets in the NFL, and that's kind of what you're looking for. Now with Brock Bowers, Ashton Jeanty, and Fernando Mendoza, just for Fernando Mendoza to do it consistently and do it for a long period of time, and for all three of those players to kind of grow together.
And even let's say it's Kirk Cousins to begin with. All right, the kind of production that you can still get can still be there for a productive triplet formation, right? You could still find be above average play at quarterback. That's still in the mix for the Raiders. So I liked where the Raiders are kind of centered. And even back then, like the 2021 season, the triplets it's Derek, Josh Jacobs, and Darren Waller. So you can have different formations coming in and out of the year. But for right now, what can that be? What can that bring in for the list right now? The triplets for the Raiders, they're not ranked as high as they potentially could be by the end of the year. I would love to see what the end of the year rankings could be on that. It could be a considerably different story and much higher than people realize.
Yeah, I agree, and obviously there's a reason for that. Kirk Cousins in his first year with the Raiders, coming off a couple of injury seasons where he was still coming back from his Achilles tendon injury, and then obviously Fernando Mendoza being a rookie quarterback. But I would say this: if Fernando gets on the field for an extended period of time, I would love to get everybody's predictions. Using your imagination, where that trio of Fernando Mendoza, Ashton Jeanty, and Brock Bowers could rank within the NFL by the end of this year. I could easily see, especially if Fernando gets on the field for an extended period of time, top 15 with an arrow, Clay, pointing up. Again, we've got Alex Eschelman from Channel 13 here in Las Vegas coming up at 8 a.m. Ralph Michaels from CalSportsLV at 9 a.m. But hey, guys, are you craving real Mexican food that's been doing it right for generations? Then it's time for Sal's Mexican Restaurant, a Central Valley tradition since 1942. We're talking about the kind of food that keeps people coming back. Stacked burritos, sizzling fajitas, legendary enchiladas, and those award-winning tamales everybody's talking about. And here's the best part. Whether you're in Selma, Madera, or Fresno, Sal's has a location ready for you. Plus, Raider Nation, listen up. Sal's is all about the silver and black. Game day, fight night, anytime. This is your spot. Can't make it in? No problem. You can get Sal's delivered straight to your door wherever you are. Just go to salsmexicanrestaurant.com and place your order right now. They'll deliver it to you wherever you are. Don't wait. Don't settle. Sal's Mexican Restaurant. Tradition, flavor, and Raider pride. Served up fresh every single day.
Vince, Vinny, and Clay want to hear from you. Call or text the show at 702-365-9200. Now, back to the morning tailgate.
I look forward to it a lot. I mean, obviously, I'm going to help the team win as much as I can. And, if I don't have to, I don't want to come off the field.
Why would you even think about taking Ashton Jeanty off the field if you don't have to? Welcome back to the morning tailgate on Raider Nation Radio, 9:20 a.m. Vinny, Clay, and Connor with you today, and that was obviously Ashton Jeanty talking about, hey, I want to be on the field. If there's no reason to come off the field, I don't want to come off the field, and that's obviously the mindset that you want to hear. And it reminds me, we brought this up, Clay, about a month or so ago. Christian McCaffrey, the talk in the Bay Area is we got to figure out a second running back for Christian McCaffrey. We got to take the load off of him during games. He plays like 85% of their offensive snaps, and they say this year after year after year. And Christian McCaffrey is just sitting back going, well, what are we talking about? No, if you want to manage my reps, if you want to manage my health, if you want to manage the longevity of a season and all of that, let's talk about doing that in practice. There's ways to do that during the week where you don't get as many first team reps or reps at all. The goal is to be ready to play 100% of the snaps come game time. That's what I'm wired to do. That's what I'm willing to do. I don't care about any kind of load management during the game. Let's figure that out during the week. On Sundays, I'm here to play football.
It reminded me of like when people were talking about that with McCaffrey, and they were like, well, they tried to do like a little a mix up with other running backs, and one of them was Jordan Mason, who played pretty well when asked to do so. He's now he got signed with the Vikings, but still, when it came down to it, we have to have our home run hitter in there. We have to have the guy that brought us here to this moment. And even for Ashton Jeanty, you think about how many snaps he had last year. I mean, this is somebody that you had like 771 snaps totally in a year where you're down most of the game. He was still on the field. He showed you the endurance that was capable of being able to be a great back, an all-pro down the road, and just having more opportunities on the field. I think this was a kind of a wake-up call first year for him, where he got seasoned with the attrition and the physicality of the game for a rookie running back. But at the same time, I think he saw a lot of football on that field, and even with their games where they were getting blown out. Like I was thinking, like on the road in Philadelphia, right? And then the season is by far past them. He was still on the field, late and mid for fourth quarter, like a lot of guys were. But he was seeing a lot of time there, and I think still that experience can go a long way right now for somebody who is still a very strong competitor, and a guy who did not lose a lot of games in Boise. He was somebody that I think now feels very encouraged by what he sees now in an offense that he knows that he is going to get the rock a lot, and I think he's going to get a lot of questions during camp about, all right, how do you feel like being paired with Washington and stuff like that? I don't think he's going to get paired. I think he's still going to be your number one ball carrier.
Oh, there's no question. And Ashton Jeanty last year, as Clay said, played 771 snaps. That represented 77.6% of the Raiders' offensive snaps. That was third, on the Raiders' offense behind Trey Tucker. Surprisingly, in a way, played about 95% of the Raiders' offensive snaps. Geno Smith, the quarterback, 86.9% of the snaps. He missed a couple of games, obviously. With injuries. So I would expect that 77%, provided he stays healthy, moves up to into the 80% range, 82%, 83%. That's what I think. And the reason I say that, Clay, is because you could use him in so many different ways. He's an accomplished, pass catcher. So why not, utilize that part of the game? And to do that, he's got to be on the field, whether you're, lining him up out wide, whether you're, and there's ways to be able to get a Mike Washington on the field, or a Dylan Laube if he ends up being, the number two back. But let's stick with Mike Washington. There's ways to get him on the field with Ashton Jeanty, not just to give him some rest, but to utilize them together, where maybe Ashton is lined up, like I said, in the slot or out wide, and Mike's back, so that you get another playmaker in Mike Washington, who's, by the way, another kind of a home run hitter type guy. Once he gets past that line of scrimmage and gets to the second level, schools out. You go watch the film at Arkansas. He was pretty big time in that regard, averaging a lot of yards per carry. So that would be interesting to see them be able to get both of those guys on the field at the same time.
Yeah, the sky's the limit for somebody like Washington too. With obviously he was picked for his skill set, his ability for having that great field vision. We know the speed is there, and this is somebody that does very well, beyond the line of scrimmage. So his college stats. Let's see how that translates to the NFL. But I feel like there's good rule for him, because Kubiak, obviously, I feel like all the offensive players that they got in the draft, they were kind of like looked at as like, how good of a fit are they in this scheme? And I think they are. And even to go to fact, like teams that are like ahead of the Raiders, we're talking about where the CBS Sports and NFL picked the offensive triplet rankings. They ranked them all. It's their 10th year of doing it, and Raiders are ranked 25th. Ahead of them is the Washington Commanders, and I think if somebody like Ashton Jeanty compared to what the Commanders have with Bill, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I would still take Jeanty. And a lot of these teams that are in the top 20 ahead of the Raiders, when it comes to somebody like Jeanty, I still feel like this guy is talented, and I think now he is primed for a breakout season because of all the good that comes with it, especially with the weapons around him, and also having that fullback. something about having that fullback there as somebody who has done this job before. Connor Hayward has made other running backs look good in Pittsburgh. He could do the same for Jeanty.
Yeah, that definitely plays into it, and I would think by the end of this year, as long as Ashton stays healthy and this offensive line is improved, I think you're going to start talking about Ashton Jeanty as a top 5 running back in the NFL. That's my belief, and I believe the talent warrants that. So yeah, I mean, even and I think the world of Kyren Williams, and I think he's put together 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He's a really good running back, but I think Ashton Jeanty is just a better running back than Kyren Williams, and Kyren Williams and Puka and Matthew Stafford are number 2 on that triplet list. It's hard to argue. I mean, Puka Nacua is arguably the best wide receiver in the game. He's had some off-field issues that he needs to get kind of cleaned up, and some health issues in terms of the way he plays the game. But he, and you got your reigning MVP in Matthew Stafford. It's hard to. I can't argue. Like we were talking about, that theoretically probably should be. If I was doing the list, Stafford, Kyren Williams, and Puka would be number 1 on my list. But hey, we're quibbling at this point. But the point being is, I think Ashton Jeanty is a better running back than Kyren Williams, and I think that as time goes on, that's going to be reflected. Now, when we talk about Brock Bowers, last year he played 60% of the Raiders' offensive snaps. That makes a lot of sense. He missed a whole bunch of games because of the injury and was limited in some others because of that injury. You go back to his rookie year, Clay, he played 85% of the snaps for the Raiders offense in 2024. That was actually that year Trey Tucker played 87% of the snaps, so he was the leader of the offense among the weapons. Colton Miller played 95.73% of the snaps over at left tackle. Boy, how great would it be if the Raiders can get Colton Miller to play 100% of the snaps, 99% of the snaps this year.
Good things will happen.
Oh my gosh! If Colton and Tyler Lindenbaum can both go post to post as the rest of the offensive line as well, but in particular those 2 players, those are 2 guys you just cannot lose through the course of the season. That's what happened to the Raiders last year, losing Colton Miller. It tells you how important he really is. But we want your thoughts, 702-365-9200, in terms of what is your imagination saying about the possibilities, the production possibilities of a Fernando Mendoza, Ashton Jeanty, Brock Bowers triplet, and where do you think right now, as you project forward, especially if Fernando Mendoza gets on the field, where do you think this group could eventually rank among the top trios in the NFL? The pass catcher, the ball carrier, and the quarterback. Where do you think that trio could ultimately land by the end of the season? And by the way, our good friend Scott Turner, who was the interim offensive coordinator for the Raiders, what was it, 2 years ago? I lose track with all these coaching changes. But he sat down with Ted Wynn, our good friend Ted Wynn from over at The Athletic, and he had some nice things and some interesting things to say. And let's hear what Scott Turner had to say talking to Ted Wynn over at The Athletic.
But then when you work with him on a day-to-day basis, and I'm telling you, like, the plays that you guys have seen on game day, that's like, you get like 9 times that in practice, so like he's one of the best football players I've ever been around. Just a day-to-day, his understanding, like everything about the game just comes really easily to him. Like you correct him on a technique, like he'll never make the same mistake twice. He sees the big picture. So like you can line him up in any different spot, on offense, and he's going to, and he's going to be able to do it. I think if he just played receiver, like if he wasn't a tight end, he just played receiver, I think he'd be very similar to like Drake London in Atlanta. You know what I mean? And he's actually got probably a little more juice than him, like as far as his explosiveness and speed. And then the other thing, like people knock him and say, oh, he's really just a receiver playing tight end. He's not a good blocker. Like Brock is a good blocker because he's got explosiveness and he understands leverage and he's going to do everything the right way.
I love that.
Yeah, so that's Scott Turner, the Raiders' former offensive coordinator, talking about obviously Brock Bowers, and that the whole thing about practice lines up with the conversation I had with Tom Telesco, and he's like, you guys saw him on Sundays during the season. You had to see him in practice. He was tearing people up in practice time and time again and making play after play after play. Man, I can't wait for Raider Nation. Hopefully, again, Brock Bowers stays healthy, because if he is, and with now Clint Kubiak as the leader of this offense, a new quarterback, a better offensive line, a better run game theoretically, the sky is certainly the limit for Brock Bowers. So I can't wait to see that for Raider Nation. Lance is on the Raider Nation radio listener line. Lance, what you got, brother?
Good morning, gentlemen. Lifelong Raider fan here. And, Vinny, I just want to tell you, you're one of the best NFL reporters in the game. I really and truly appreciate your work. I follow you on X, and every now and again I got to jump in with the idiots that don't even pay attention to what you're saying. But as we look to win Fernando to start, I agree with you that when he shows he's ready, not perfect, but ready, I think it's imperative to get him on the field so he can accelerate his learning curve so you can maximize that rookie contract. However, I think the most important benefit of having Kirk Cousins starting to be in the season is what it allows Kubiak to do. So Kirk, with his PhD level of understanding of this offense, that's going to allow Kubiak to accelerate his implementation for the entire offense. He won't have to hold anything back in the game plan from a complexity standpoint. And I think that's going to allow all the other offensive position groups to accelerate their experience in the system and fast-track Kirk's implementation. And that's going to ultimately greatly benefit Fernando when he comes in. I'm sure Kirk's going to have to herd some cats during these first few games, get guys dialed in. And that saves Fernando having to correct the other guys when they're just learning the nuances of the system. So that is why I'm so grateful for this new direction for the Raiders. It's a clear direction. There's intentionality. There's urgency, but with like a clear-eyed understanding of where this team is. And I think Kirk is just one of those decisions that makes all the sense in the world to set the table up for Fernando's success. So take care, and thanks for all that you do, gentlemen. Just win, baby.
Nice call, Lance.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you for the compliment. Truly appreciate that. And yeah, I agree. I definitely see, Kirk Cousins being on the field early for a lot of different reasons, getting this thing in order, getting this thing laid down, and then eventually hand it off to Fernando at some point this season. I think it's important that transition happens. However, if the Raiders are playing great football, I could definitely see and totally open to them riding it out. If they catch lightning in a bottle and some magic pixie dust has been bestowed upon them, and they're making a little bit of a run, stick with it. Raider Nation absolutely deserves that, and there's a lot of merit to learning how to win and to winning football games, and that could be a great learning lesson for Fernando Mendoza as well. Clay, we've got a word of the day, I hear.
Yes, it's time for our Summer of Fun word of the day, brought to you by Raider Nation Radio 920 and Terrible. Each and every day we give you a keyword of the day so you can register to win one of the great weekly prizes we have. And this vacation on the Mississippi River is getting a lot of attention. Everybody wants to go on the cruise cabin 5-night stay. We take care of your flights. We take care of your port fees, your taxes, your gratuities, the whole Magilla. Or you could just take the $3,000 cash. It's up to you, but you got to enter to win. And by doing so, it's easy. Text the word of the day. Today, it's hotel. HOTEL. Text hotel to 702-365-9200 for your chance to win the Summer of Fun, brought to you by Raider Nation Radio 920 and Terribles. Coming up next, more of your thoughts and on the text line and on the phones here on Raider Nation Radio 920.
We'll take your comments and questions on X. Follow us at RNR920AM. Let's dig in to the morning tailgate on Raider Nation Radio 920.
It's the morning tailgate on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM. Vinny, Clay, and Connor, and we are talking about the potential of the Raiders triplets. Their quarterback, it'll eventually be Fernando Mendoza. Running back Ashton Jeanty, and tight end Brock Bowers. And where does that rank? Where will that ultimately rank in the NFL hierarchy? The CBS Sports for I believe it was the 10th straight year, put their rankings out in terms of the top trios of the NFL. As we mentioned, Cincinnati Bengals, number 1, Joe Burrow, Chase Brown, and Jamar Chase. Number 2 are the Rams, Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams, and Puka Nacua. Number 3, the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Number 4, the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers. Number 5, Dak Prescott, Javonte Williams, CeeDee Lamb from the Dallas Cowboys. Number 6, and how the mighty have fallen a little bit, and there's not even Travis Kelce on this list, but it's Patrick Mahomes, Kenneth Walker III, and Rashee Rice for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay.
Yeah. Number 7, and I actually think that the key here for me is DJ Moore, but number 7 is Josh Allen, James Cook, and DJ Moore with the Buffalo Bills, and that kind of tells you, Clay, how uncertain the Bills are at wide receiver. I like DJ Moore, and I love DJ Moore, but I mean, James Cook led the NFL in rushing last year. Josh Allen, obviously a perennial MVP candidate. For them to be only number 7, it tells you a little bit of suspicion on the wide receiver part of that. Number 8, the San Francisco 49ers, another situation where wide receiver is a little bit iffy. Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Mike Evans. Remember, Mike Evans is now with the 49ers, but coming off an injury-riddled season himself. That's number 8. Number 9, the New England Patriots, Drake May, Ramondre Stevenson, and wide receiver A.J. Brown. Remember, A.J. Brown, the Philadelphia Eagle wide receiver, is now with the New England Patriots, and right behind them at number 10 is Brown's former team, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, and Devonta Smith. It's interesting about the Philadelphia Eagles. You hear those 3 names, and it screams much higher. But, things got a little funky last year, Clay, with the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts, I felt, took a little bit of a step back. It's hard for me to figure out, was it Jalen Hurts or was he being handcuffed? It just didn't seem like he was being used in the proper way, and it looked like he was just playing with one arm tied behind the back. That led to A.J. Brown wanting out. They ultimately traded him to the New England Patriots. But when you talk about Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, you're like, okay, that's got to be top 5 right there. And Devontae Smith. But no, that's number 10.
Yeah,
but it'll be interesting to see where that ultimately ends up.
What do you think went down over there? Because, like, last year, Hurts only passed for 3,200 yards. Overall in a full season. And we were thinking earlier this year, let's say just if Fernando played a full regular season schedule, I would think he would eclipse 3,200 yards. I think that would be a lot further ahead, and maybe just because they have a more efficient offense, but it doesn't seem like that's not the prolific style of passing yardage you would expect from a top 10 offense. So if they didn't have A.J. Brown, where would they be in this ranking last year? And this year, Devonta Smith is good, but it still doesn't seem like that's a complete, a massive, three-headed monster. Because the Jalen Hurts last year, that showed some regression, and I've always wondered, what was the true meaning behind that? We're going to find out now, because all the blame was left on the shoulders of A.J. Brown.
Yeah, and here's the thing. It was actually a couple of years in the making, because you go back to 2024, and they won the Super Bowl with this recipe. He played one less game, and we're talking about Jalen Hurts. He played one less game than he did last year. So he missed 2 games in 2024 and played 16 last year. And the season before, he threw for 2,903 yards. It's never been a prolific throwing team. They're a run-centric football team offense, and I think they feel like we have a quarterback that has a high level skill set, but it's not a Josh Allen, it's not a Justin Herbert, it's not a Lamar Jackson type of a feel or a look, or a Matthew Stafford. Right. They have to do things a certain way to accentuate what he does, and that year the Super Bowl winning team, yes, he threw for for 2,903 yards. That's not a lot, even for 15 games.
Right.
But he did complete 68.7% of his passes through 18 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. You'll take that ratio every day. Last year, though, his passing completion percentage fell from 68.7 to 64.8. The touchdowns, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That's obviously not a bad ratio either. But he's never been the prolific type of a thrower. They have a certain recipe. I just think that last year, I don't know whether he was frustrated. I don't know what they did that kind of, altered it a little bit for him. But he didn't look like the same player. The offense certainly didn't look like the same offense. It led to making a change at offensive coordinator. So interesting to see how what that'll look like for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's the Morning Tailgate on Raider Nation Radio, 9:20 a.m. Want your thoughts? 702-365-9200.
This is the Morning Tailgate.
Deuce! Goodbye! Into the end zone! 60 yards! Touchdown Raiders!
With Vince Sapienza, Vinny Bonsignore, and Clay Baker.
It's the trifecta for Bowers! His third touchdown of the game! And the Raiders with a chance to win it!
On Raider Nation Radio, 920.
Welcome back to the Morning Tailgate on Raider Nation Radio, 9:20 a.m. on a Friday. Vinny, Clay, and Connor, and we're talking about triplets. We're talking about the Raiders. Use your imagination here, and just think about a future that includes and what that future could include and could ultimately play out with Fernando Mendoza as your quarterback, Ashton Jeanty as your running back, Brock Bowers as your tight end. Those are the last three in order. Raiders first-round picks, and Clay, I remember a lot of hand-wringing over the last couple of years when the Raiders made a tight end, the 13th pick overall. Oh, my goodness. And then they picked a running back, 6th overall. Oh, my goodness. And now when you look back on it, while the order might not have been quote unquote ideal, I never believed in any orders. Stack your football roster with as many good players as possible when you have a chance to do that. Is anyone arguing at this point when you think about the possibilities of this trio?
No. And that's the thing. Like, you want to make sure that you have, when you look at triplets, are they proven commodities? And they are. For Mendoza, it remains to be seen. But the commodities are what you feel is potentially there for the Raiders. It could be extremely good, especially for a guy coming in like Clint Kubiak, who understands what they do the best and how do they get the most out of each one. What could be had for somebody like Brock Bowers with a Kubiak offense where you see how everybody gets better when you think how things can roll. Kubiak himself has been somebody that has been preaching highly about somebody like Brock Bowers. Like, we have to intentionally get him the ball. I think he said something like a career season is intact for somebody like for Brock Bowers. When asked, I think it was Ryan McFadden earlier this week. I think he said something like, we've got to get the most out of Brock. He's been successful in college and high school, and whoever's coached him can't say enough of great things out of him because he's a standard bearer, the work ethic. And you even heard that when Scott Turner kind of talked about that. Like, for a rookie, even Turner was amazed at how well adept he was at how not only ready to go in a rookie season, but how you never had to worry about him coming out and being on the field and being asked to do so many different things. So the potential really is there.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I think the potential is there when you think about Fernando pairing up with him now, and Brock being in this offense. But it's proven. Brock Bowers is a proven commodity. He is. I don't think you would get many arguments from people if you just said that he was the best tight end in the NFL right now.
I'm
period.
Okay with
exclamation
that.
point.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and it's when you base it on what he did as a rookie, last year was a wash. He was hurt all year, so you have to take that into account. But showed a lot of toughness just getting out there. So when you talk about Brock, when you talk about Ashton, you're talking about. If you want to say the best tight end in the NFL or the second best tight end in the NFL, whatever, he's one of the best tight ends in the NFL, period, exclamation point. He's a dynamic football player. I think in Ashton Jeanty, it is potential, but I've seen enough to suggest that you're talking about a guy that by the end of this year, very well likely could be talked about as a top 5 running back in the NFL, maybe even better, depending on how things break out. We'll see about Fernando, but that my point about drafting those two guys is 2 years later, you got the best tight end in the NFL, and I'm pretty sure you're going to see a guy that's going to be a top 5 running back in the NFL. Who the heck cares when you drafted him, what your other needs were? Do you draft a running back that high, a tight end that high? Yeah, when they're that good, you should. And you would be looking back in regret had you not done that, now. But they did, and now they've lined themselves up pretty good. And who better than by the way, Alex Eschelman was set to join us at 8 a.m. She's actually going to join us at 8:30 a.m. So we're looking forward to that. But Raider 66, our resident Raider historian, wants to chime in about the potential for this trio. Raider 66, how you doing, brother?
Hey, doing okay, guys. How are you today?
All right, 66.
Doing all right, thanks.
Great. Yeah, I like this. I was just talking the other day, as it would, by happenstance, about triplets, and that term came about football-wise back in the '90s with the Cowboys, and they had, of course, Troy and Emmett and Michael, and those three were basically the catalyst, along with a nice defense, for going and winning 3 Super Bowls over 4 seasons. So that's where it got to be kind of trendy. You need the big triplets and everything like that. And I like where the Raiders are going with this, and we talked so much in the past about teams, about good teams. When you go to the draft, you take, best player available. And that's what the Raiders did. That quarterback wasn't available for 3 seasons, so they got the best tight end. They got the best running back. And now, hopefully, we got the best quarterback in 3 successive drafts. That's pretty amazing. But I think the analytics are a little bit skewed, putting the Raiders at 25th. And it's, rightly so. Brock's availability, he's got to stay healthy. And then, Jeanty's got 1 year behind him, behind a terrible offensive line. So, they don't really know what to make of that. But I see that the Raiders sitting at 25, and the top 10 that you just listed off, I can see the potential there. We're in the top 10 with the guys that we got, whether it's Mendoza or Cousins at quarterback. You got Jeanty and Bowers there. If the line can play up to its capabilities, and if you do something once, it could be a fluke. If you do it more than once, now it's just, a matter of focusing and being consistent. You take those 2 games last year against the Bears and the Texans. Combined, Jeanty had 266 yards on 45 carries.
Okay.
That's 5.9 a carry. Mm-hmm. So yeah. And then you got Bowers in that first game when he was healthy against the Patriots. He had over 100 yards on 5 catches. So
yeah, he picked up right where he left off.
Exactly. It is not a stretch to think that these triplets that we have on the Raiders are going to just be bowling people over. All you need is a little consistency from that offensive line, and things are, I can't wait for the season to start. This is just going to be so much fun. And I think Raider Nation, the young Raider Nation that hasn't seen the true Raiders, that guys like Papa Meach and all the old guard and myself have seen, this is just going to be so much fun watching this. And with the schedule's difficulty, and we have new coaches everywhere, we got new players everywhere, we got free agents, it's going to take a little time to gel. So the end of the year is probably going to be better than the beginning. But I don't by any stretch think that if things go right, we can be doing well. But I think the organization is doing the right thing. I think that, we're the organization of just win, baby. But I think this season, wins are basically, kind of an afterthought. They want to build that foundation and get everything ready to go. And then next year we make a big move. But I tell you, this is going to be so exciting, and I can't wait. And thank you guys for the time. Everybody have a great weekend. Be safe, and go Raiders.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Raider 66. I really appreciate that. And, I'm a firm believer. I fully agree with what you're saying. This is, the Just Win Baby organization. But I think that's they haven't lost sight of winning. I think what they've redirected their focus to is taking care of all those steps that you have to complete to get to winning. My dad used to always tell me, you take care of the small things, the big things are going to take care of themselves. So if you take care of the little things day after day after day, whether it's your decisions on personnel, whether it's you as a player dedicating yourself to be the best version of yourself in the weight room, in the classroom, off the field, all of those things. And if you're taking the proper right steps and not missing any of those steps, every step along the way, as small as they might seem at that particular time, ultimately the big things are going to start taking care of themselves, and the big things are the wins. And I think that the Raiders are going to accumulate some wins along the way. And I've said this: if you're telling me that Fernando Mendoza, Clay, could be the quarterback, play extensively at quarterback, and let's just put a number to it, 9 games this year, start 9 games this year, and the Raiders could win, 7 games, I'm okay with that. To me, that's real progress. That's a 4-game improvement, and hopefully by the end of the season, what you've seen from Fernando is, okay, that box is checked off. Now it's just continuing to build this team out, and you Clint Kubiak and his staff, yep, that's a box that's checked off. The running back, Ashton Jeanty, a box to check off. The offensive line played well. That's headed in the right direction. A box to check off. You start checking off all those boxes. All of a sudden you're looking around going, we really don't have too many boxes to check off. And you can not singularly focus on those remaining boxes, but you can get ultra focused on those remaining boxes, so that you're not having. This has been the problem for the Raiders for years. Is they get to the end of the year and there's just, where do we start on the boxes, right?
Right.
There's so many of them that it's going to be impossible to tackle all these boxes in 1 year. And because of the previous drafts, Clay, with getting a Brock Bowers, getting an Ashton Jeanty, now getting a Fernando Mendoza, those are 3 pretty big boxes to check off. I think they feel like they're headed in the right direction with the offensive line, investing the way they have in free agency and in the draft. That hopefully by the end of this year, we're talking about offensive triplets. By the end of the year, I think there's going to be one major box to check off for the Raiders offensively, and that's a big-time premier wide receiver, because you put that on the team with the triplets that we're talking about. This has the potential for a lights-out offense with a Clint Kubiak, with a good offensive line, with a great running back, with a great tight end, with a great wide receiver, and hopefully for the Raiders, a great young quarterback.
Yeah, you would become a handful at that point. Your Raiders offense would be, there's a lot of different weapons that are on the field that you have to go and account for, and that's what a lot of those teams, and they're in the triplets at the top of this list, that's what they have. They're a handful to deal with. Like the Lions, when they're clicking, there's a lot of moving parts there that you can't just go and say, we can handle this if we stop the run. Not necessarily. So it makes you multidimensional. And I think about all the teams that are ahead of the Raiders on this triplet list, the Raiders sitting at 25. I'm just thinking, other than the quarterback, I would rather have instead of I would rather have Jeanty and Bowers than Krosky, Merritt, and Terry McLaurin of Washington, Travis Etienne and Chris Olave from the Saints. I would still go Jeanty, Bowers there. Giants, Cam Scadaboo, Malik Neighbors. I would go Raiders there. Colts,
1,000%.
Colts with Jonathan Taylor, Alec Pierce, and even the Jags with Tootin and Brian Thomas Jr. I would still feel the future is very bright and positioned correctly when you have at least 2 of those 3 components intact, and that's Jeanty and Bowers poised for breakout years.
Yeah, and by the way, of the top 2 teams, this is why I'm saying another a premier wide receiver would go a long way, because you look at the Bengals, they've got the trio, the triplets, but there's really a quartet with T. Higgins there as the wide receiver, right? And with the Rams, Devontae Adams is forms that quartet as well for them, along with Puka Nacua, Kyren Williams, and Matthew Stafford. And I know the Rams, they're going to watch once Devontae Adams leaves, they're going to figure out a way to bring in another great wide receiver. They understand Sean Sean McVay understands the power of just overwhelming opponents with great skill players and great quarterback play and great scheming, but you have to have the horses to do that. So you never stop, and you're always looking at ways to get even more powerful. I would expect that's going to happen.
And you wanted that in the draft. You wanted that in the draft when you were you were pounding the table for somebody like Denzel Boston. And like that makes a lot of sense right now, because you want to get this timeline going on the triplets, but having that extra weapon at wide receiver and somebody who is an obvious mismatch down the field, that's where you want to position yourself. That's the future.
Yep. Charles from Oregon is on the line and wants to chime in about the conversation. Charles in Oregon, take it away, brother.
Hey, happy Friday. Hey, Vinny, I just have to say I love the advice that your dad gave you. As a professional, natural, competitive bodybuilder, I'm right in the heart of it right now. And all the small little things you do on a daily basis, they lead to great things. And so I'm glad to see that the Raiders are doing that. And I was, ironically, I was reflecting the other day, listening to the show and thinking about, I'm so glad that the Raiders don't listen to me. And what I mean by that is, watching the draft, and I was thinking, okay, we're going to get Fuaga out of Oregon State. That's going to be a great, really good offensive lineman. And I'm sure he will be. Didn't happen. We draft Bowers, and I was thinking, why didn't we get Michael Penix? And then fast forward, I was looking forward to Jeanty. But when I look at the three that we have, the big three, I see them within the next few years, maybe not this coming year, but maybe the next year, being in the top 7, maybe, in triplets. And I see that because it's going to take time for them to develop. But Bowers, it's like the old school, ironically, we're talking Vegas, the slot machine where you pull the arm and the cherries line up, right? Well, I feel like it's look at what lined up. We ended up with the best tight end / receiver, in the NFL. You end up with Jeanty, who's going to be a outstanding running back for the team. And then I think you've got Fernando Mendoza, who I think not only does he have a high floor, I think he's got a higher ceiling than a lot of the quarterbacks drafted recently. And so with those three, and who I'm looking at next year, and maybe they will listen to me on this one, is Jeremiah Smith. If you can get him, oh my goodness, we're cooking with hot grease. So, hey, God bless you guys. Have a great weekend. Sure. Thanks for taking my call.
Real quick, yeah. Charles. We talk about Fernando's floor. What do you think his ceiling is? Like, if you were to put a player, a comp to it, what do you think the ceiling is?
Well, it sounds crazy to say this, but I just keep seeing in him. It depends on what the team does as a whole. But he reminds me so much in the way he speaks, acts, thinks, processes. It's Tom Brady Jr. And so what I see is it's up to the Raiders to build around him. Could he, that's a high aspiration to get to something like Tom Brady.
The highest,
GOAT, right?
Some would say.
Yeah, it's the highest. But what I'm saying is he could come close to, he could win multiple Super Bowls, but it's a matter of this is the greatest team sport. What are they going to do around him? Because Tom Brady could have went to a team and they didn't build around him. Did he lead them to multiple Super Bowl wins? Of course. I think Fernando could do that.
Great call,
Yeah,
Charles.
I agree. Thank you very much. My ceiling for him, if we're going contemporary, I know this may sound crazy, Clay, but I see Joe Burrow in him. I see an accurate passer, a smart processor, a good enough athlete, somebody that doesn't get rattled, somebody that rises to the moment. Unfortunately for Joe, there's been some injuries, obviously, and talk about a guy that's played behind a bad offensive line. He's played behind a bad offensive line that's led to some of the injuries, but I feel like that's the kind of ceiling that we're talking about with Fernando Mendoza. Again, might sound crazy, but that's when I watched him last year at Indiana, I saw Joe Burrow at LSU I know Indiana had a good football team, but he didn't have the players that Joe had at LSU. That was a power-packed football team.
Yeah, it was.
With the Jamar Chases and the Justin Jeffersons and on and on and on.
But this could be better this time around, just because you have, there's so much good synergy energy, and on the offensive side with Janoko and Kubiak and Dennison, they're not going to allow a quarterback to get sacked as much as Joe Burrow did in his first year, second year, continually, right? Like they have never figured out what they wanted to do on that offensive line to make it right. Joe Burrow has done successfully well without any of that. So having the weapons there and having a good offensive line, that bodes well for somebody like Mendoza to go find his spot and identity even further.
We want your thoughts, 702-365-9200. Where would you say is a safe landing spot right now for the Raiders triplets? And we have to use our imagination a little bit and injecting Fernando Mendoza into it. We don't know when he's actually going to get on the field. Could be day one, could be 6 games down the line, whenever that is. But when this is a fully functioning trio of Fernando Mendoza, Ashton Jeanty, and Brock Bowers, where would they rank in the NFL right now? CBS Sports had them at 25th. There was some projection going on, obviously, with Brock Bowers coming off an injury type season, and Ashton Jeanty playing behind a really bad offensive line. So there is some projection, but that doesn't mean that that they have been capped at all. There's so much potential for this trio, especially when you put Fernando Mendoza into the picture. And so I do think if we get a good look at Fernando Mendoza, and if the offensive line is functioning at an efficient level, I do think that this has the potential to be a top 12, top 10 type of a trio just this season alone, let alone down the road in the future, Clay.
And we see the same thing from the text line. A lot of people pouring in some thoughts. Gage from the 620 says, the first thought about our triplets, trying to compare them to other triplets, would be the Detroit Lions. A good pocket passer, Fernando / Goff, a stud running back, Jeanty Gibbs, and a number 1 receiver, Bowers / St. Brown. Another would be the 49ers. They got Purdy, McCaffrey, and Mike Evans. Our triplets have a very high upside. Thank you, Gage, for that. That's very cool. And, with the 49ers, I mean, Mike Evans will be turning 33 in August. So at least with the Raiders, you have, the youth on your side. And that's what got the Lions through. The Goff is now going to turn, I think, 31 this year. But you can't underestimate 3 straight years of 30-plus touchdown passes. The Raiders can get to that with this kind of trio because of the talent that is already there. But a good pocket passer, Fernando could be that. Fernando, especially the way he's been trying to work and hone his skills under center, really shows you that this is somebody that, like you said, doesn't get rattled, but is also going to be into continuously improving. Those are essential assets and characteristics you want in a young quarterback, somebody that's not going to settle. Fernando doesn't seem like that guy at all.
Yeah, I've always been a big Jared Goff fan. When a lot of people were bailing on him, I was like, no, he can still play. He got hurt with the Rams. The Rams felt like they could inch a little closer to an even better quarterback. How are you going to argue Matthew Stafford, for crying out loud? So they had an opportunity to go ahead and get a better quarterback. That doesn't happen very often, but they were able to do it. But that didn't mean that Jared Goff was a bad quarterback, as a lot of people assumed. Oh, he's just a salary dump. No, Brad Holmes, the general manager of the Raiders or of the Lions, was literally the scouting director for the Rams when they drafted Jared Goff. He knew what he was getting in Jared Goff, and that was a great trade, as it turned out, for the Detroit Lions as well, for the reasons that you just expressed. Now they have one of the best trios in the NFL, and that's not going anywhere anytime soon. Hey, guys, just a reminder, Alex Eschelman, who is set to join us at 8 a.m., is going to be joining us at the bottom of the hour. But I got to ask you guys, how long have you been saying, when it comes to your health, when it comes to your weight, when it comes to feeling better, how long have you been saying, hey, I'll start tomorrow? Well, guess what? Tomorrow's not coming. But your opportunity right now with City MD. If you're tired of feeling sluggish, frustrated with your weight, dealing with daily aches and pains, or just not feeling like yourself, it's time to take control. City MD in Las Vegas offers personalized wellness and weight management programs designed for real, lasting results. But they don't stop there. City MD also provides advanced pain therapy and primary care, giving you a complete head-to-toe approach to your health. One team, one plan, built around you. More energy, less pain, better health, real confidence. And here's the thing. Appointments are filling up fast. Stop waiting. Stop putting it off. Give them a call at 725-255-7246. Ask for our good friends Andy or Claudia. They'll take it from there. Or you could go to citymdphp.com. That's citymdphp.com right now and schedule your consultation. CityMD, stop waiting. Start feeling like yourself again today.
Vince, Vinny, and Clay want to hear from you. Call or text the show at 702-365-9200. Now, back to the morning tailgate.
In terms of the process that now for potential expansion here, multiple various serious groups are in the process of presenting plans to our bankers, and those plans not only include who the potential owners would be, but their vision for what Las Vegas basketball could look like, where they would play, how they would present the game, and it's music to my ears.
Welcome back to the Morning Tailgate Show on Raider Nation Radio, 9:20 a.m. here in Las Vegas. And that was Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, talking about the potential for the NBA arriving here in Las Vegas, which, just so everybody knows, is imminent. It's going to happen. As Adam said, they've got multiple groups lined up to be the buyers of the team, the owners of the team, build an arena, all these different plans, which, as he said, is music to his ear. Why? Because that's competition. The more the merrier. Show us your plan, show us your money, and that way the NBA can get as much out of this as possible, and it's going to be a home run. And by the way, Adam Silver was responding to a question from the great Alex Eschelman from KTNV Channel 13 in Las Vegas, and Alex is kind enough to join us, as she does every week at this time. Alex, great question. Obviously a great answer from Adam Silver. It should be raise the excitement level for everybody in Las Vegas about the NBA eventually landing here. What were your thoughts hearing Adam talking about the prospects and the multiple groups that have thrown their hat in the ring?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, as always, for having me. I love coming on here every Friday morning. Aside from my question, I thought, it's always interesting listening to Adam Silver. I think that he's, in terms of a commissioner of a professional sports league, I feel like he's right at the top of the list. Definitely, as far as when it comes to just answering questions, he's always very thorough. He makes you feel like the most important person in the room, and always does a great job of kind of explaining the why behind everything. So I thought it was interesting that he, one of the Seattle reporters came out and said, we're not getting as much publicity in Seattle as Las Vegas is. So what does that mean? And he had a great answer. And I don't think this comes to necessarily a shock for everybody, especially people who are, in the business world, in the real estate world. There's a lot of ownership groups that are not, out there publicly saying, "Hey, we want to be the ones to bring a team." So it does make you intrigued by that, in the sense it's like, okay, who? It's exciting to know that there's a lot of other groups out there that are wanting to, not only bring a team here to Las Vegas, but also to Seattle. And of course, those two markets are in much different positions. I mean, we're so lucky here in Las Vegas because everything's just, coming out of the woodwork, and it's becoming this major sports city so at a rapid pace. Meanwhile, Seattle, of course, lost the Sonics years ago, and that was a huge team for them that identified the city. So I'm rooting for them just as much as I am rooting for Las Vegas, but that was the biggest thing.
Well, Adam Silver's been very cautious about, trying to not put enough favor in one city or another about the expansion question. But you got him to speak for like 90 seconds, and he was very preferential in what he's been able to see from not only Vegas as a global city, but he was impressed with how many kids and how many courts there are locally, and how many people are really invested just on a primary family level into basketball. However, when you start taking a look at how he talked about the ownership groups that are kind of starting to put the bids in. How many bids do you think there are vying for this? Because obviously Vegas is a very lucrative market, but what do you think the number would be right now as we start to take a look at paring them down?
I'm going to say what are there? I want to say there are at least at least 4 to 6 that have come out publicly. I want to say like 10. I don't know. What do you guys say? I would say 10. At least, maybe 10. Is that too generous? Maybe 10.
I think, yeah. I mean, but I would say 4 to 5 that are legitimate, like that are going to make that cut, and then of that, they're going to pair. Obviously they're going to get it down to 1, and they're probably going to do it pretty soon because this is the plan. From everything that I hear is for it to be here in 2028. Is that I'm not speaking out of school on that. So, are you going to need to build a new arena? Are you going to need to refurbish, T-Mobile? Getting everything lined up, getting the money in place, all of that needs to happen pretty quick for all of this to happen by 2028. So I would say that there's probably right now about 4 legitimate contenders, and again, the NBA loves that because the more the better in terms of the legitimacy, because now you have some certainty to tie into that. And I think it's a cinch. It's going to be Vegas and Seattle. It's just coming up with the best, especially here in Las Vegas, the best ownership group and the best plan for where this team is ultimately going to play, right?
Could you imagine? So we're seeing the building of the Hard Rock right now. We're seeing the development of the A's ballpark. Could you imagine seeing another state-of-the-art stadium? I mean, it would be the skyline is going to be insane here.
Yeah, you could start calling it Stadium City because there's no doubt that they're going to have to build something new eventually, especially for them. But it makes you wonder also, Alex, like where does this need to have a strip address, or do you maybe find a way and work with the city of Las Vegas so this is downtown? I mean, property on the strip is very expensive, but there are parcels that could be given out or bought.
That's a great question. I mean, I don't see how it wouldn't land somewhere near on or near the Las Vegas Strip.
Agreed.
But Las Vegas is such an interesting city too when it comes to the layout, because there's only so much land that you can expand off of. That's why it's part of the reason why they call it the Ninth Island, is because there's so much government-owned land that blocks it off around the parameters of the city. So it to me, that's kind of a benefit of Las Vegas, because it's this massive small city in a sense, and it's really well designed and doesn't feel like traffic's going to get worse, guys. It's going to happen. But I do think the way that everything is designed, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay.
Yeah. And traffic can't be I remember, when going to meeting after meeting, whether it was for Allegiant Stadium or SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, and the town hall meetings and the city hall meetings and the residents would get up to speak, and it just felt like every time one of the residents got up to speak, it was something negative, right? And it's like they talk about traffic. I'm like, look, that can't be the reason why you don't have progress in your city. I mean, you're going to have to just figure that out, or just don't go down there on game days, which you up and talking probably leads me to believe that you're not going to be going down there to watch any games or actually go drive down there anyway. So it used to drive me up a wall. So this is happening. So like you said, it's not, hey, accept it. It's just now you're going to have to do things a little bit differently, but in the name of progress, you should gladly be doing that. Hey, Alex, shifting to football, we've been talking about the Raiders, quote unquote, triplets, and the future of this of a great, what looks to be and has the feel of a really strong trio of Brock Bowers, Ashton Jeanty, and eventually Fernando Mendoza, and kind of projecting that forward in terms of where that would rank among other great triplets in the NFL. And I feel like there's no ceiling here when you're talking about a great tight end like Brock Bowers. What I think is going to be a top 5 running back in Ashton Jeanty by the end of this season, and if Fernando gets onto the field for an extensive period of time, I think that people are going to see why he was the number 1 pick overall. But if you could use your imagination a little bit, what do you think is in store for that particular trio?
I mean, you know me, but I could go cheerleader on you and say that they're offensively they're going to lead us to a Super Bowl. I mean, but I think I'm so excited to see, especially Ashton Jeanty and what he's able to do this year under Clint Kubiak and Andrew Janocko, and just because, with how rough it was last year, he was still breaking records. And same with Brock Bowers. I mean, it really is incredible that the two of them, with the lack of offensive production that was going on last season and the struggles that they had on the offensive line and at the quarterback position, that they were still able to do some incredible things. And so, I mean, now with a new style, new scheme, new guys, new coaches in place, more depth at the offensive line, more options there. I think truly the sky's the limit for them. And then Fernando Mendoza, I mean that's the biggest question. That's going to be the biggest question on everybody's minds for a while, in terms of when he's going to start his first game, when he's going to, take his first snaps, and when he's going to be under center in general this season. And it was so exciting to see him at the ESPYs and win the award that he did. He's such a class act on every level, and I think the sky's the limit for him too. That being said, we haven't seen him play in the professional, National Football League yet. So a lot of questions surrounding him. I think it's hard to even answer it until you see him under center for the first time as a professional quarterback in the NFL. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, for me, it's like, there's a definite urgency there, isn't there? I mean, even if, let's say, if Kirk Cousins starts the season right at week 1, every throw that isn't totally in line is going to be scrutinized and criticized. Get Mendoza in there. Any play that could have been run for a first down, well, Mendoza could have done that. Like, you could see how this is going to go, where, as good as Cousins can be, there's always going to be a certain amount of criticism because everyone is so, desirous to see Fernando Mendoza start right away. And it makes you wonder, like, well, maybe there isn't a perfect time for Mendoza to start, but perhaps there might be a time in which you're like, I don't think I can sit and watch average any longer. I want to see what the potential could be in another young quarterback.
I'm going to say this, Alex. I think that regardless of who's the quarterback, I think this is going to be a top 13 trio, even if Kirk Cousins is the quarterback for the full season, or Fernando Mendoza is the quarterback for the full season, or for an extensive period of time. I think right now we're going off of CBS Sports did an article on this, and they had the trio at number 25, or this triplet grouping at number 25 in the NFL in their top 32 rankings. I think it's going to be. I think it has a potential by the end of this year to be a top 13, top 12 group.
I think that's totally fair. I have a question for you guys. Where does Aiden O'Connell fall in this quarterback situation? Because every time Clint Kubiak, Andrew Janocko, I mean, really any of the offensive guys take the podium and we listen to them and hear from them, they have great things to say about Aiden as well. So I don't. Where does he fall in line between the two?
There's a great line in The Godfather, and it was from Michael Corleone, Al Pacino's character, and he's talking to an old friend of his in the room where his dad. It was his dad's former office, Vito Corleone's office, in the house that he grew up in, and he was talking about how my dad taught me so many lessons in this room. One of those lessons was think like the people around you think. So when you think about everybody singing Aidan O'Connell's praise, put yourself in their shoes and ask yourself, why would they do that? Number one, they probably believe it. I'll say that. Number two, doesn't it make a little bit of sense to prop him up because maybe some other team might need a backup quarterback or maybe even an emergency quarterback and come calling on him at some point, knowing that he's probably going to be the number 3 quarterback here with the Raiders? Hey, what would it take for us to trade for him, even if it's a 5th-round pick, to get something for him? So maybe there's a little bit of strategy behind what they've been saying about him. But I will also say this, and I want your thoughts, Alex. I actually think that he has a long career ahead of him. It's probably going to be primarily as a high-level or high-end backup quarterback, but somebody that's not going to embarrass himself, somebody that if he needs to start him 6-7 games or maybe even a full season is going to acquit himself pretty well.
That's super. I love the Godfather reference there, Vinny. That is. I mean, we're traffic reporters, we're real estate reporters on this radio show today, and now we are making Godfather references. That is beautiful.
But I do think it is interesting about Aidan because, eventually, if you're the Raiders, he's going to be your number 3 quarterback this year, unless barring injuries, and let's not hope that on anybody. So barring injuries, he's going to be their number 3 quarterback. And at the end of the year, he's going to leave. If you're Aidan O'Connell, you want to leave and find a better situation for yourself. So there might come an opportunity to move him so that at least they get something for him rather than losing him for nothing at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I guess time will tell. We'll see what happens. But circling back, I mean, I think you guys hit the nail on the head with being top 12, top 13 when it comes to the trio. It's going to be exciting offensively. Defensively, the trio, what do you think it is? I mean, who when you think of the defensive trio for the Raiders?
Ooh, that's a work in progress. That's a good question.
That's a good one, right? We got to think on that one.
Right. Max Crosby, Quay Walker, and Traden Stukes. Eric Stokes, maybe Traden, maybe Jamon McCoy.
Right.
Maybe Jamon McCoy. We're going to have to go quartet with the defense. Alex, we're going to have to go quartet with the defense probably.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, we'll think about this, and we'll hit you again next Friday with the defensive triplet section. Because we got our minds spinning right now. Alex, it's a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much. Great work down there at Channel 13, and thanks for making time for us today.
Thank you both as always. Hey, next week we're going to be talking training camp preview. I can't wait.
Whoop, whoop.
Exactly. The rookies will already be in, too. There you go. So Fernando will already be on the field by this time next week. Love it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Alex.
All right. Have a good one, Alex. That's Alex Eschelman, our good friend, Alex Eschelman. And, yeah, Clay, we're going to have to start talking. We might have to make it a quartet for defense. I think that's going to be appropriate for defense, but that's a subject for another day. It's Raider Nation Radio. It's the Morning Tailgate. It's Vinny, Clay, and Connor, and we want your thoughts on this very subject. What do you think about the potential for Ashton Jeanty, Brock Bowers, and Fernando Mendoza as a high-powered triplet group for the Raiders this year and moving forward? Your thoughts, 702-365-9200.
Before we get out there, I want to go ahead and give away another pair of tickets to the Totally Tubular Festival there. We have been having this going on all week. It's going to be going down on July 25th, so not this Saturday, but next Saturday. I have a pair right now. If you want to go to the Totally Tubular Festival, maybe you and your SO, maybe you and a good buddy, you want to get out there, well, guess what? Be caller number 9 at 702-365-9200. Again, that's caller number 9 at 702-365-9200 for your chance for a pair of tickets to the Totally Tubular Festival going down at the Sahara Pool in Las Vegas.
We'll take your comments and questions on X. Follow us at RNR920 AM. Let's dig into the morning tailgate on Raider Nation Radio 920.
Yeah, he's kind of a football robot in a good way. He's a football robot from heaven. You know, he's a Cadillac out there. We got to get the most out of Brock. You know, wherever he goes, he's been successful in college and high school, whoever's coached him. You know, just can't say enough great things about him. Love his work ethic. He is a standard bearer.
That's Clint Kubiak talking about Brock Bowers. It's the morning tailgate on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM. Clay, I got to say that I'm just dumbfounded by something that I just read. Mike Florio put out a piece on Pro Football Talk about the Raiders. Do they have a real quarterback competition? And he ended the story by saying, put simply, the Raiders haven't been good enough to put the better player on the bench. If that's Mendoza, he needs to play. And this is the sentence that I just can't believe he actually wrote. If it's not Mendoza, maybe they should have picked a better player when they returned to the Jamarcus Russell spot for the first time in 19 years.
No.
If it's not Mendoza to start the season, what Mike Florio is suggesting is maybe they should have drafted a better player at number one than Fernando Mendoza. You got to be kidding me, Clay. I mean, just because he may not start the season. Mike, what are we talking about here? Clay, help me out.
We got to get into this in the third hour. I don't like that at all. And it's funny that, you know, sometimes PFT can kind of like be baiting Raider Nation for clicks. This one is confusing and confounding.
Yeah, and I have to say this is not a Raider thing. It's a Mike Florio thing. Truly, that was not the smartest thing that I've ever seen written. I'll just put it that way. It's the morning tailgate on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM, and we're going to have to chew on that one a little bit coming up on the morning tailgate show.
And don't forget, our word of the day for our summer of fun is hotel, Hotel. Text that in to 702-365-9200. Ralph Michaels is next here on Raider Nation Radio 920.
This is the morning tailgate.
There have been plenty of other coaches, but why not us? Why not this staff? You know, why not this group of players? I look at it as what a great challenge. We're going to be about the work.
He is back, baby! And the Raiders regain the lead!
With Vince Sapienza, Vinny Bonsignore, and Clay Baker on Raider Nation Radio 920.
It's the morning tailgate on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM. Vinny, Clay, and Connor. And without further ado, we're going to go back out to the Raider Nation Radio guest line and welcome in our good friend Ralph Michaels from CalSportsLV. Ralph, thanks a lot for joining us on a Friday. I got to imagine with training camp getting ready to start actually this weekend. I think it's the Seattle Seahawks who open up this weekend. I believe it's their rookies start here in a couple of days. I got to imagine you're pretty fired up. How fired up are we about training camp starting, preseason starting, and ultimately the NFL season starting?
Oh, absolutely. The Hall of Fame about 3 weeks away now. The first week of August. So excited. There's not much I do in the training camps. Obviously, I look at the quarterback battles and the O-line battles. But to me, I let the preseason and the camps play out before I make any too big of a decision on what the positivities or negatives of a team.
When you look at what the Raiders could do as far as their quarterback depth is concerned, how do you think this will be kind of played out as they kind of both nurture Mendoza but also keep monitoring him to see how well he can perform, maybe from the 3s to the 2s to the 1s?
Yeah, it's such a tough schedule Las Vegas has. Las Vegas is only favored in 3 games this entire season. The opener against Miami, and then games 15 and 16, hosting Tennessee and going to Arizona. When you look at their first half prior to the bye, which is in the first week of December, after playing Miami at home, at the Chargers, at New Orleans, home to KC, at New England, Buffalo, the Rams. Every team's a playoff team there. with the exception of New Orleans. Then you have to go at the Jets, at San Francisco, at Denver, at Cleveland with a home game at Seattle. So 2, 4, 6, 7 of your first 10 games are on the road, and you're an away dog in every one of them. That's a tough start for a quarterback. So, is Mendoza good enough to start day one? Yes. Are you going to spend the money on that type of backup to let him start versus get beaten bad early against a lot of good defensive teams on the road? I think bringing in Cousins was the right move. I would personally sit Mendoza for the first half of the season, see how he matures through that process, and then just get him some reps in the second half and some starts as well.
Is that plan predicated just on fear of throwing him out there against some good teams? I mean, are we afraid to do that? If he's not ready, he's not ready. But if you feel like, hey, he's close, I don't think that we should be operating out of fear in any sense of the word. It's the NFL. He's a grown-up kid, and I think he's wired the right way. So I'm going to ask you, if sitting him in through the first half, is that philosophically based? Fear-based? What exactly is the motivation?
Well, I guess the issue is this. With young quarterbacks, I grew up with Cleveland and the Browns, so I don't even know what rookie quarterback success means. So, we haven't had a first-round quarterback that has had any success. My fear is, I understand Mendoza is elite. I mean, his Mensa-type brain, learning every player's name before he met him at Indiana, all that prepares him for a playbook. But what would scare me as the owner is, at the Chargers, top 10 defense. At New England, top 10 defense. At San Fran, top 10 defense. At Denver, top 10 defense. At Cleveland, we'll see after the trade if they're still a top 10 defense. He's not going to become a Hall of Famer playing those defenses on the road in season number 1. But if he has a horrendous stretch or gets happy feet early in his NFL career, we've seen a lot of good quarterbacks falter early, lose confidence early, and then struggle for the next several years.
There have been certain cases, and we've seen it just in like the last 5 to 6 years, like somebody like Joe Burrow, for example, who is going to start, but yet, obviously the pieces around him aren't perfect and perhaps a little unproven. Just considering like what you have with Jeanty and Bowers, would you feel a little better by at least saying, all right, let's take a look at what we have in Mendoza, because we know we have at least some skill players around him and a Kubiak offense that we know that he can be worked with and can be trusted with?
Yes and no. I understand it, and again, this quarterback is I think he's mentally more NFL ready than almost maybe anyone since Elway. So we'll see if that pans out. But if you're the Raiders management, do you pay the most money ever for a backup quarterback if you don't plan on him being the mentor, or are you just happy paying his salary just to be a mentor in the off-season camps and in the spring?
Right.
Again, I have no problems bringing him in. I just don't want them. I don't think they should get locked into position that he has to start every game and be our quarterback from day one.
Yeah, I agree. This cannot be a money decision, and I mean he's getting paid, decent money, but when you look at how much they are paying their quarterbacks collectively, it's far less than most teams are paying their starting quarterback, their high-end starting quarterback. So I think that it should not be, we're paying Kirk $20 million over the next 2 years, he's got to play, and I don't think it will come down to that. I think your reasoning in terms of the defenses that they face, and maybe, hey, let's just hold it off a little bit, see what we have in terms of this offensive line. Is this offensive line capable of protecting the quarterback? Are those weapons that Clay just mentioned ready to go and ready to support this quarterback? Is this offense, did it take hold in terms of the offensive line and everybody else? And then figure out a time to get him onto the field. But that's my question, is how imperative, how important is it for Fernando Mendoza whenever that opportunity comes to inject him into the starting lineup? How imperative is that he gets to play some extensive time as a rookie?
I'm okay with this. I'm okay with him starting to take snaps in the second quarter, even in the first 4 or 5 games. If your O-line's holding up at a tremendous defense, what's the issue of bringing them in to play the second half?
No issue.
I agree.
They're not going to make the playoffs. Okay, we know, again, they're over under what win total is 4. And granted, if they win the first 5-6 games, you throw everything else out and you're going to play for the playoffs. But right now,
for sure,
the Raiders need to set up for the Raiders for the next 4 years down the road to become a building block. So by working him in slowly, letting him see the first quarter of each game, letting him see some blitzes, bringing him in, playing the second and third or the rest of the game. But there's a big difference. How many times have we heard quarterbacks saying, watching the speed of the game teaches me so much? I think those are valuable reps that young quarterbacks lose by getting thrown into the mix. Yes, we've seen some quarterback. I mean, a decade ago, no rookie quarterback would ever start game one in the NFL. Now, with what we're paying him and the monies they're putting him into him and the draft capital, we're forced to see many younger quarterbacks play. But we've seen incredible quarterbacks sit for that first year, learn so much from just their eyes and hearing the plays being called and being visually able to see it from the press box or the pictures up above versus being on the field and making those decisions.
Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk, CalSportsLV on X. When you look at what the AFC West can be, the teams from Kansas City, Denver, and the Chargers, how do you feel like they're coming out in this year? Any of those teams feel a little more overrated or underrated?
Well, to me, KC is KC. The Chargers, one of the better teams if you didn't factor in injuries, but you always have to factor in injuries. So, I still think Denver is the best team. I really am a fan of what Peyton has done with the team since coming over from the Saints and taking over that job and working Knicks into the mix. And you look at Denver's schedule this year, they've got a lot of games where they're a small underdog, but they're not a dog of more than 3 points in any game this season. Okay. So that gives them the opportunity, as long as you now have a veteran quarterback in Knicks that doesn't make mistakes and you win those close games. I really think it's going to come down to the close games at the end of the year when we look at Denver and we look at Kansas City and the Chargers. Those teams that won the most games that were decided by under a touchdown, likely the team that's going to win that division.
I'm curious what your thoughts are, your deeper thoughts on the Chargers. They stagnated offensively. Didn't help that their 2 starting tackles went down with injuries early in the season. No team's going to be able to survive that. They still made it to the playoffs, but that same postseason bugaboo for Justin Herbert, took hold again. Another really bad performance in the playoffs by him and the Chargers. At what point does he need to take it another step further, before people start talking about him as a really good regular season quarterback who doesn't get it done in the playoffs?
Well, I think we're there already. We heard it last year. He had to listen to all those bugs, and then, the performance he did is something that you look at it. I mean, year-to-date stats, again, we know what he's capable of, 3,700 yards, and he still throws the ball downfield. But after throwing 10 interceptions the 2 previous years, he had 13 INTs. So we have seen it where when he has pressure, he has not played well under pressure. And it's a great point. And to me, it's tough to back him. It's tough to back him in the postseason until he proves he can have a late drive and win some of those games and make the right decisions. You can't always win a game if you're a quarterback, but you certainly can lose the game if you're a quarterback, and that's the pressure he has right now.
Yeah, when I hear Ralph Michaels' voice in July, I think about his great preseason guide, which has been a gold standard around for many years. And when you take a look at the preseason in the NFL, and people are looking for edges, especially in betting, what are some of the things, just like some tangible things that you look at as far as characteristics of teams that do well in the preseason?
Well, when people look at preseason quarterback rotations, they're usually looking at the overall, and that's the number one thing. First, you have to know what quarterbacks are going to be playing. Just because the quarterback starts, there's some players that play their starters, there's some teams that don't. Those are the coaching decisions. There's some coaches that like playing their second string or third string players, and there's some that want their rookies to get first string action. So knowing the rotation is the number one most important thing. But a couple sneaky things are sacks. We make a big deal about sacks on defenses, but when a team sacks opponents in the preseason, that basically means they are game planning. If you're game planning a defense, you absolutely want to be on those teams. Couple situations last year. The team with the most sacks last season was Houston in the preseason. What have they done? Well, they dominated the preseason 3-0 last year, and they're 1-9 over under their last 8. Their defense just doesn't give up anything regular season or preseason.
Wow.
Cleveland went 3-0 straight up. Their defense allowed 10, 13, and 17 points. They were number 2 in sack defense last year. So I always look for teams that do have a lot of sacks the previous year, has the same DC, and has most players the same, because they're likely going to keep the same mentality in the preseason. But just to show you how much turnover we get in the NFL, here's a fun fact. There's one NFL team that has had the same head coach, OC and DC, and I list all of those the last 10 years, so you can see at a glance how many coaching positions each had. There's one team that has had the same head coach, OC and DC, the last 3 years. That's the Carolina Panthers.
That's pretty crazy to think about. The Los Angeles Rams had a couple of slight weaknesses last year. One was that cornerback. The other was a true closer defensively. Well, lo and behold, they go trade for Trent McDuffie. They bring in Jalen Watson, his Chiefs starting counterpoint on the other side at cornerback. And then they go and trade for Myles Garrett, who is probably the ultimate closer, defensive closer in the NFL. How good are the Los Angeles Rams, and what would you put their odds on closing the deal this year at SoFi Stadium as a Super Bowl champion?
Oh, they're clearly the favorite, but the issue is this: if I have the favorite, I am never going to bet them to win the Super Bowl. Obviously, it's a nice bet to have. You're going to get, I think, 4-1. But again, there's no value betting them. Even if you have that winner, injuries can happen. If Stafford goes down, Ty Simpson, Stinson Bennett, who do they go to? So one injury can derail that whole team. Clearly the favorite, yes. Should they be twice the favorite of the next best team? I 100% think so. Elite team, elite coach, has been there and done that. And being a Cleveland Browns lifelong fan, so depressed that Myles Garrett was traded, but so happy for Myles Garrett to be able to play for a winning team and have a shot to get to the postseason and Super Bowl. So best of luck to him.
Hey, before we let you go, and we tell you people, go to WagerTalk, check out Ralph's preseason guide in the NFL. It's fantastic, great information, but you're also big into college. Where do you stand on certain teams this year, especially Notre Dame, when you think about all that could be laid there for them, and especially with a great quarterback?
Well, in my power ratings, guys, these are my official power ratings I'll be starting. Obviously, injuries start. I have Ohio State, the number 1 team, Notre Dame 2, Georgia 3, Indiana 4, Texas 5, Oregon 6, Miami of Ohio, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and USC. So those are my power ratings. I only have Ohio State 1 point better than Notre Dame, and I have Notre Dame 1 point better than Georgia. And in the Mountain West, just FYI, this may not be the most popular thing to say, I have New Mexico at 77 as the top team. Wow. UNLV 1 point behind them, 76. And then back to Air Force, Hawaii, and North Dakota State. I have a 4-point gap having all three of those teams at 72. So UNLV, if they hold their own, it's going to come down to the New Mexico game, I believe, and we'll see. It's, in my mind, it's basically a pick-em.
Woo! Whoa.
It's going to be a great. I truly believe, and get your thoughts on this real quick. I think there's about 7 teams that could win the national championship this year. I truly believe that, and I'm curious why you're so high on USC. You're not the only one.
It's just the continuation of. In the Big Ten, they have brought up their recruiting levels immensely. Because in the Pac-12, you couldn't compete with the SEC and those guys. But now that they're in Washington are in the Big Ten and Oregon, we've seen Oregon's recruiting classes crank. the power of the Big Ten, the money those programs get, the NIL monies they can sign, it's just a process of underachieving for so many years, but continuing with the talent. Talent-wise, they're there. Again, they need to prove it on the field, and my power ratings change pretty quickly. But from what people a lot of times think, you have a lot of starters, you're good. You don't have a lot of starters, you're bad. The most important thing when you're making your power ratings is I take a 3-year average. So if Ohio State only returned 8 starters and then returned only 7 and then returned only 8, you might say, oh my gosh, Ohio State's horrible. They only return 8 starters. No, they've shown they're a elite national championship level player with only 8 returning starters because they lose so many players in the NFL draft. So knowing what a team has lost the previous several years and where they are relative to that, USC lost a lot of talent a couple years ago and they lost a lot less. That helps push their numbers up as well in my power ratings.
So you're saying Cignetti and Indiana reloaded after all their seniors, and they had a lot of upperclassmen move on from this team.
Yeah, and again, I have if you look on the WagerTalk, if you're going to check out this free guide, I do a guide which is how many points each football team lost in the draft. And Ohio State almost set a record. What I do is I take out, if you're a top 10 player, you lose 8 points. Mm-hmm. First round, middle, you lose 7 and 6. And the second round is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Check out that guide. You'll be amazed that some of those teams that really got hurt, losing much more talent than they're accustomed to. That is one issue with Indiana. They lost all those players. Indiana, I think, is about to sign their first 5-star recruit. They've never recruited a 5-star. It's much tougher for a team that doesn't have the depth of quality depth like Indiana to be a one-year hit. Lose all those players. We'll see if Cignetti can come up with the depth to make them a team that we're accustomed to, like Ohio State, like Georgia, like Texas, like Alabama, those reloaders that never rebuild, they just reload.
Ralph Michaels from CalSportsLV. Truly a pleasure to talk to you. Can't wait to catch back up with you when the games start being played, and we have some more to chew on. Ralph, thanks a lot. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you down the road, brother.
Appreciate you guys. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. And
you got
well,
it.
That was very eye-opening when he talked about the preseason and how important we know for the Raiders week 2 of the preseason with the joint practice against Houston and perhaps that game, and how difficult and how much that team preps in the preseason for their defense to be going up against certain offenses. This is one hell of a test for the Raiders when they go into Houston that week.
Yeah, and that practice is going to be very enlightening, for good, bad, or indifferent. We're going to find out a lot about kind of where the Raiders are at that point. And I don't expect them to go out there and, beat the brakes off the Houston Texans. They, especially offensively against their defense, it's a tremendous defense. Yeah. But it is going to be a really good litmus test for where the Raiders are to start the season, and you keep building from that and getting better as the year goes on. But I'm with Ralph. If they believe that Fernando is ready, and if they believe that the offensive line and the offense is ready to support him, there's no sense waiting to get him on the field for a prolonged period. However, if they're winning, as we talked about earlier, Clay, if the pixie dust has been sprinkled on them and they're on some nice little magical run, why not stick with it and see where that goes? It's the morning tailgate. It's Vinny Bonsignore, Clay, and Connor on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM.
Vinny and Clay want to hear from you. Call or text the show at 702-365-9200. Now, back to the morning tailgate.
It's the morning tailgate on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM. Vinny, Clay, and Connor. Our thanks again to Ralph Michaels from Cal Sports Las Vegas. Clay, I mentioned earlier Mike Florio and saying that, hey, if if Fernando Mendoza is the better player to start, at option at quarterback, then absolutely he should start the season. But if he's not, if it's not Mendoza, if Mendoza isn't the better option to start the season, and I quote, maybe they should have picked a better player, basically when they selected first overall. Maybe they should have picked a better player.
And for years, the stories from Florio was like, they have to find the quarterback of the future.
Right.
They have to go into the draft. They have to get the guy that's going to lead them to the promised land, and instead of trying to find something in free agency.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that he understands the concept of just because they feel like the right thing to do is not put him out there game one doesn't mean that he's not a good player, and that they regret that they took him, and maybe they should have taken David Bailey, number one overall. I'm not quite understanding where Florio's jumping to that conclusion, or even making that kind of a statement and saying, well, if he's not the right guy to start the season, or if they feel at that point in the season Kirk Cousins, the better way to go, maybe they should have picked a better player at number one. All right, we got some sound from Mike Florio. I don't know if he shed some light on that sentence, or just his thoughts on the Fernando Mendoza, whether or not he should start the season. Here's Mike Florio.
The Raiders need to get better ASAP. And if Mendoza's the better player, he needs to start. And if he's not the better player than Kirk Cousins at this point in his career, you've screwed up the first overall pick. It's that simple. As I said, good luck selling to Max Crosby, Brock Bowers, and any other veterans who are desperate to win more games than they lose. If Mendoza is better, forget about this idea that we're going to put him on ice for a year and let him learn the ropes that way. There's no replacement for getting out there and getting reps, seeing defenses, understanding the patterns, having the game slow down. The game doesn't slow down until you have a chance to experience the game at high speed. You got to go through that stuff.
Okay, so
that was Mike Florio. I agree with that part.
That part makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, practical experience is the best experience. You can only learn so much watching from the sidelines. I just you have to get out there and play and experience it and make the adjustment, whatever adjustment you might need to make to this level, to the speed, to the defenses, all of that. And that's the best way to do it, is actually do it. Just facts. But the notion that if they feel like the right thing to do, and that's why we keep saying Fernando's running his race, and it's really not a race that's that is competing necessarily with Kirk Cousins. He's running the Fernando Mendoza race to get as ready as possible, as early as possible, as quickly as possible, to go be what he was drafted to be, and that's the quarterback of the Raiders. But the Raiders aren't going to rush that. But by being prudent in that way, if the Raiders practice some prudence and say, you know what, we love where he's headed, but he's not quite there yet, and maybe we're not quite there yet either to really support him as we feel like we need to. There's so many examples of teams screwing up their young quarterbacks more than the young quarterbacks failing the teams. We're going to wait a little while before we actually put him on the field. That doesn't mean that they screwed up the first pick overall, Clay. What the heck?
Yeah, and he keeps, I don't mind the article in the way, but I just mind the way he wrote it, because he keeps bringing up the name Jamarcus Russell. He brought it up twice, and it's almost like you're just dangling it out there for reaction. But this is not that particular time. This is not that situation.
Well, let's just focus on did the Raiders make a mistake if they don't, start Fernando week one? Is that? I mean, that's an idiotic sentence to me, Clay.
Yeah, because this is the guy. This is the one that you couldn't miss on this. There's no other guy that I mean,
that might be the case down the line when he gets out there and plays. If he isn't able to play at the right level, then we can judge that as, you know what, the Raiders missed on Fernando Mendoza. It happens. Okay, it's not ideal. I don't think that that's going to be the case, but we'll figure that out when he gets out there and plays, what he is and what he isn't. I'm saying because they are being patient with the process, that means that they blew the pick. We can't be that myopic or that such a prisoner of the moment to determine whether the first pick overall was a success or not, or was the right pick or not, because they are making a strategic decision to hold off putting him out there. That's like saying Eli Manning was a mistake. The Giants blew the Eli Manning pick back in 2004 because he actually sat for 9 games, I think it was, or 8 games, 9 or 8 games to start the season. Does that mean Eli Manning was a mistake? Was Carson Palmer, who sat his entire year, a mistake? Was Patrick Mahomes a mistake? Was Aaron Rodgers a mistake pick? Did they blow that pick? Well, I don't even know what he's basing that on. Like, we have example after example after example of quarterbacks that waited. We have examples of quarterbacks that played. Was Drake May, Clay, did they blow the pick on Drake May? Because, last I checked, he didn't start his rookie season. It took a little while. It took a few weeks before he got out on the field. Justin Herbert didn't start his career as a starter. It was Tyrod Taylor. Did the Chargers blow the first pick overall? It wasn't the first pick overall, but did the Chargers blow that pick? Should they have picked somebody better because Justin Herbert didn't start the season, Clay?
No, it's funny because Tyrod Taylor was both, there to aid Drake May and Herbert at the, in their successive times. It's not. And even if you're taking what you hear in minicamp from maybe Kubiak or even Cousins to literally, that still doesn't say like what the short-term focus and the long-term focus will be. And if you're thinking they're just going to park him in the garage all year, that's asinine. No one's going to do that, especially when you know that, as even Florio said, yeah, you have players on this team that want to win right now. Well, of course they do. That's always the case on every team. The point is that this is the answer, and they're trying to go and say, well, you messed up this pick. You probably should have got your best BPA. You don't do that, especially when you're at a point in which the Raiders were coming off of a 3-win season. You go after that quarterback. Now he's also wondering, like, all right, so when do you play him? The season's in the balance right now. Can we just be just a little bit cautious and see what training camp's going to lead you to an outcome?
How about not being idiotic? That's a good starting point for me. How about not being idiotic and saying idiotic things and writing idiotic things? That if the Raiders do what plenty of teams in the past have done, for every Peyton Manning, there's an Eli Manning. For every Caleb Williams, there is a Patrick Mahomes. Teams take different paths when it comes to their young quarterbacks and their rookie quarterbacks. So because that guy isn't necessarily the best option to start the season, there's a lot of different variables that play into that. Not the best option for us to go with a rookie quarterback because we don't feel like we could block for that rookie quarterback and we want to break that quarterback. That's one thing that's going to play into the decision. And maybe he isn't quite ready to be an NFL quarterback right out of the chute, and maybe they're seeing a couple of things that it's headed in the right direction, but he's not quite there yet. We're going to roll with Kirk. That's why we brought him in here for just in case basis. But that doesn't mean that it was a mistake to draft him. It's one of the most idiotic things I've ever heard, Clay.
Snake Man from the text line says, Florio, go away, clown. Quarterback debate is not an issue at this sense until the offensive line and skill position core look competent enough to support a rookie quarterback. Then you start the vet. Fast track the offense with Cousins while Fernando gets the playbook down and allow the offense to settle in and get cohesion. Thank you, Snake Man.
I can only hope for Mike Florio. And this is the God's honest truth. I can only hope for Mike Florio. This was just a clickbait type of a story. I cannot fathom, believe, accept that that's literally what he's thinking. I cannot put myself into that place that Mike Florio would actually think that if Fernando Mendoza isn't the field against the Miami Dolphins, which he very might well be. But if he isn't, I can't imagine that he would say, it's time to redo the 2026 draft. The Raiders blew that pick. It's time for them to go get Caleb Downs or whoever, because they obviously blew the pick because he's not starting in the season. The Raiders have deemed and determined that the best plan of attack is to sit him for a period of time and let Kirk Cousins. I can't imagine, Clay, that's what he's actually thinking. This has to be something just to get people like myself, my nerve up, and everybody else's nerve up, which, if that is the case, kudos to you, Mike Florio, because you accomplished your goal. But that has to be your goal. He cannot possibly think that, Clay. He can't possibly think that.
No, and what if the sentiment around March and recent mini camp was, we like the rookie. Yeah, we like where this is going. What would the story be like? Well, they're rushing him out there way too soon. They rushed Jamarcus Russell out there way too soon. You can almost see where he's just like swinging a carrot in front of Raider Nation to get people fired up and heated. And the texts are coming in. They're applauding you, Vinny. They're happy that you're calling it what it is, which is idiotic.
Well, look, if he was floating a carrot, mission accomplished. But but I actually think he actually thinks that. That makes it a million times worse. Like, you're actually thinking that, look, Jared Goff sat his first, he played 7 games his rookie year.
That's right.
Was that a mistake pick, Clay?
No, not
Was
at
it
all.
a mistake to draft Jared Goff, who a year later you win a division championship with? A year later, from that you go to the Super Bowl. Was it a mistake that Jared Goff, that the Rams decided, hey, we're going to roll with Case Keenum, we're going to try to get everything set to eventually play Jared Goff? Was it a mistake? Did they blow that pick, Clay? I'm asking you. Did they blow that pick?
No, of course
Did the Rams blow that pick?
No, of course not.
This is ridiculous.
They made other mistakes in that Fisher era, but that was not one of them.
Yeah, no. They drafted the quarterback first of all. They traded a whole bunch to go get him, and then they had a strategic plan to develop him, which is exactly what the Raiders are doing with Fernando Mendoza. Whether he starts the season day one or whether there's a delayed start to his starting career, there is a plan in place, and you don't throw the plan out, out of idiocracy, like Mike Florio saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to be over here saying you blew that pick. That is just mind-boggling to me that he would actually go there.
Yeah. That's really a major reach to even go that far. East Oakland Raider texting in, Florio and Dan Orlovsky are the same zero. Pull all the clickbait. Raider J in Monterey says Florio is constantly talking out the side of his neck. Fernando is highly fungible. Thank you, Semper Fi Raiders. Then that's another thing. See, Dan Orlovsky, he tried to do this too.
No, you know what? I'm going to back Dan Orlovsky. Look, when it comes to scouting, whatever it is that you see, put it out there. That's what he saw. He felt like Ty Simpson was a better quarterback than Fernando Mendoza. That's fine. I don't have really any argument to that. I disagree with it, but that's what he sees. That was his objectivity, and I think scouting is all objective. It should never be subjective. You should never be going off who was drafted where or whatever it is. Write what you see. Say what you see. Say what you believe. I don't agree with the assessment, but at least in Dan Orlovsky's case, he's just like, I looked at both of these quarterbacks and I feel like Ty Simpson's the better quarterback. I think he's wrong again, but I'm not going to disrespect his opinion. That's his opinion. This is a far different cry. This is saying, without even seeing him out there, that they blew the pick because they decided to execute a plan of attack in their plan to develop Fernando Mendoza, and just like many other teams have. Again, did the Giants blow it with Eli Manning?
No,
because he didn't start his rookie season. They went with Kurt Warner. They won 2 Super Bowls with him. The Rams went to a Super Bowl with Jared Goff, and they won multiple division championships with him. They didn't blow that pick because they decided to wait to start him and go with Case Keenum out of the gate. It's the Morning Tailgate Show. Vinny Bonsignore, Raider Nation Radio, Clay Baker, Connor, Raider Nation Radio, 920 AM.
Before we get out to a break, I want to go ahead and give away some more goodies here. Got a 4-pack of tickets to go see the Las Vegas Aviators taking on the El Paso Chihuahuas. This is going down on July 25th, so not this Saturday, but next Saturday. A 4-pack of tickets to see the Aviators versus the El Paso Chihuahuas. Let's take caller number 9 right now at 702-365-9200. Again, that's caller number 9, 702-365-9200 for your chance at a 4-pack of tickets to go see the Aviators versus the El Paso Chihuahuas at the Las Vegas Ballpark.
This is the Morning Tailgate.
Oh, Paisan. Oh! Back up. I'll talk to him about it. I've been telling you for months now this guy's no good. I want to sit down. All right. Answer the phone. I want to sit down.
Hey! On Raider Nation Radio 920.
Oh!
It's the final sit-down on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM, the Morning Tailgate Show. Vinny, Clay, and Connor still fired up about that.
Well, people
Mike's
are worried.
Might have to turn in his Italian card, man. Telling you.
Grumpy-ass Mexican texting in, Vinny, take a breath, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. Every time the Raiders do or make a move, the Florios of the world will say the dumbest move ever, and there'll be another team that makes the same or similar move, and it's one of the best moves of the year. He goes, example, we took Ashton Jeanty, and what a mistake. Cardinals take Love at number 3, and it's now a great pick. So, just breathe. It's going to be okay. Grumpy's worried about you. Welcome to our world. It's okay. Maybe use a bag to breathe into, Clay. All right. Well, I could help out. I could help you. But
I'm fine. Mike Florio isn't. That's who people should be worried about. It's Mike Florio, because that's just. I don't even know what, like, to make that, just to even say that, to say those words, like, if he doesn't start the first game of the season, they blew the first pick overall. Oh my gosh.
From the text line at 702-365-9200, we were talking about the Raiders triplets earlier today. Mendoza, Jeanty, Bowers, in comparison to the rest of the league and their triplets. Funky Raider 31 chiming in, saying the Raiders have the potential to be great, and I believe that will come when the offensive line gets established. Have you seen Jeanty's offseason workout program? He's a candidate for my offensive player of the year. It's unreal with him dunking a basketball. And thank you, Funky Raider 31, with that from Long Beach. Yeah, the offseason videos for him and the workout videos from Jeanty, they're impressive, and he's been doing those for a couple of years now on social media.
Yeah, he's a specimen, and the fact
amazing.
that he can dunk a basketball at 5'7" or so, right?
Right.
He's not a tall man. He's shorter than you, Clay. I think, right? You're.
And so was Spud
right?
Webb.
I'd say. Right. Yeah.
Right.
It always pissed me off when dudes that were small. I had never even got close to dunking, so that's not a world that I ever lived in. But I used to say, how does that dude? How can I'm taller than him? Why does he get to dunk and I can't?
And it's not
There's
shoes.
two things I wasn't able to do: dunk, and I didn't. I was a great hitter in baseball. I never hit a home run, and I hit the top of the fence like 5-6 times. And my dad used to always say, he goes, that's my fault. He goes, I taught you to be a line drive hitter. I didn't. If I would have taught you how to swing for home runs, he goes, you would have hit some home runs. I remember thinking, Dad, thanks, Dad. All I ever wanted to do was round the bases on a home run.
Well, that's the thing. Like, yeah, but how could you have been a better contact hitter if you didn't learn how to swing down on the ball and be a line drive hitter, right?
That's true, and I could hit, man. I was a hitter. I was a multi-Little League All-Star many years in a row. I played catcher, but yeah, and there were a couple I got underneath it, and I'm thinking, this is going and then it just hits the top of the fence and bounces back to the field. I'm standing at first base because I was pimping it, even at that age, and my dad, who was my manager, is looking at me like, dude, you should be at second base right now. As slow as you are, that you should be at second base right now. So. Anyway,
hey, that's all right.
Thanks for some.
At least you made the All-Star team. And you weren't held back by the coach's dad or the one of the son's fathers. Coaching the All-Star games, because there's always somebody left out.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, oh well,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, Jason plays second base.
Or there was always somebody that was put on where you're like, this doesn't make sense. Oh, his dad's the vice president of the league. Now it makes all the sense in the world. So shout out to Montalvo Little League for no politics. There was no politics at Montalvo Little League in Ventura, California.
Yes. That's
all right. I want to say
the
thanks to all. Yep, absolutely. I want to say thanks to all of our guests this week. I want to say thanks to Clay, to Connor for the great work. Vince, I believe, right? He's back next week, right?
Yeah, Vince comes back after his sojourn for a
wherever that is. I can't wait to find out where.
On social media, there were some beach photos of him and the beautiful wife and the lovely kids. So, yeah, I think he was in his happy place out there, taking in the sunsets on the beach, wherever that was.
Okay. There was water involved there.
One more text before we go. From the 803, I like this when we were talking about the triplets. It says the Raiders remind me of those Dallas teams that had the triplets with Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and Michael Irvin. If the cards fall right, they'll get a bona fide wide receiver, Jeremiah Smith, in 27, and have the ultimate quartet. Based on Spytek's comments about the long-term franchise building, they're absolutely eyeballing Smith in 27. May take a top 5 pick, but let's all root for the college quarterback class to kick ass, and that will pack the board early on next year. Thanks for that from the 803.
Great thought, and I do think that even if you get to 7 and 7 and 10 with 17 games, which is a 4-game improvement, obviously from last year, and a nice sign of progress. Even if you get to 7 and 10, I still think you might get a top 10 pick. And as the texter said, with this loaded quarterback class, that could mean even with a top 10 pick, let's just say 8 or 7, pick number 7 or 8, you could still get a generational wide receiver, or at least put you in range to trade up if you wanted to go get that generational wide receiver. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to our guest. Remember, keep it on Raider Nation Radio, 9:20 a.m. here in Las Vegas. JT the Brick comes on at 12 from 12 to 2, and then obviously Q Myers with Unnecessary Roughness from 2 to 5. Keep it dialed in to Raider Nation Radio. Clay, Connor, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you guys on Monday. We'll talk to everybody on Monday morning at 7 a.m.